See for yourself. Now, do you believe me, Ranger?
What has happened to me?
You are banished from death. Cast adrift between the worlds of light and dark. Curse binds us together within the walls of Barad-dûr.
If what you say is true, then how do we break this curse?
We find the one who cast it on us. The Black Hand of Sauron.
Middle-earth is a world with no shortage of lore, but surprisingly enough hasn't always translated well to video games. It's ironic, given the number of high fantasy games that have been strongly influenced by Tolkien's world. Monolith has stepped up to the plate to give us Shadow of Mordor, combining open-world action with a few original game mechanics in hopes of giving Middle-earth fans the game experience they have always wanted. Set entirely in the dark land of Mordor, and taking place between the events of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, it acts as a much-needed bridge between the two. You play as Talion, a ranger from Gondor who's in charge of defending the Black Gate. He's killed along with his family in a sudden attack led by the Hand of Sauron, but instead of dying, his body is possessed by an elven wraith. This wraith grants him power over death, bestowing him with a plethora of different abilities to use, like the ability to fire magical arrows, lightning speed, and increase resilience, among others. The world is a typical sandbox design, feeling very similar to games like Assassin's Creed. There's a relatively small map to wander around in, along with towers that help to reveal the immediate vicinity, as well as acting as checkpoints and fast travel stations. These towers are pretty much identical to those you'd find in an Ubisoft game. Despite having a strong and interesting narrative, there aren't many story quests, and there isn't as much content as you'd come to expect from a game of this genre. It doesn't take very long to walk from one end of the map to the other, featuring a minuscule-sized world compared to Grand Theft Auto V or Assassin's Creed Black Flag. There are some additional missions to be found though. Along with the main story quests, there are optional missions and challenges which can provide you with new runes and abilities. However, these don't add much to the gameplay experience. The saving grace of Shadow of Mordor, and the main thing that sets it apart from being just another generic, mediocre sandbox game, is a nemesis system. This one feature is innovative, addictive, and extremely well executed. It single-handedly makes the game worth playing. The basis of it is whenever Talion is killed by one of the many Uruk-hai orcs, that orc becomes your rival and is promoted in Sauron's army. They'll gain access to new weapons and abilities, making them all the more formidable when you run into them a second time. Even specific dialogue will play out between Talion and the orc, as they will recognize him from last time.
No flames this time? Good.
If you're killed by just the average orc, he will immediately be promoted to captain and can have a posse of followers the next time you see him. If you're killed by a captain, they will continue to rise in strength and influence, as they'll use Talion's death as a stepping stone on their path to Warchief. Each of your nemesis will have their own unique personality, along with strengths and weaknesses, which can be revealed by interrogating other orcs. For example, a captain could be immune to ranged attacks or become significantly stronger if you kill one of his friends. On the other hand, he could have certain weaknesses such as being afraid of fire or certain beasts. This allows for elements of strategy and planning prior to hunting down one of Talion's nemesis. Events will also happen without your intervention. Orcs will fight amongst themselves, often killing one another, leaving openings in the army.
Less blah blah blah! More smash stab kill!
They will also seek to raise their strength and standing with various trials. The war chiefs can be particularly difficult to hunt, since they will often have multiple captains defending them, and sometimes it'll be better to pick them off one at a time prior. I had so much fun with the Nemesis system that I found myself dying on purpose on more than one occasion just to watch an orc's rise to power. The combat in Shadow of Mordor is similar to games like Assassin's Creed, and most particularly the Batman Arkham titles. It favors countering your assailants while maintaining a high hit chain with the odd special move thrown in. It's not overly challenging, and the game can be completed rather easily, with only the odd nemesis being difficult, based on the combination of passive abilities he possesses. The bosses aren't noteworthy, being fairly easy, with the conclusion of the game coming about rather abruptly. Shadow of Mordor could have really benefited from another 10 or so hours of content. The DLC from the Season Pass seems to promise more, but I would have definitely preferred if this was included from the get-go. The game does have RPG elements, however they're not really in depth. There's no BioWare or Witcher style dialogue either, if you're hoping for that. The game shouldn't have been advertised as an RPG and should have just been marketed as a sandbox game, as a fairly straightforward talent tree that doesn't add much of anything significant aside from passive bonuses, while each of the abilities are usually unlocked as a result of completing a mission. There's also a rune system where runes can be added to each of Talion's weapons. These runes give different buffs and are obtained primarily from killing your nemesis. The higher their level, the better the rune generally. The visuals are well done, but I noticed some inconsistencies in the textures between the orcs. Some orcs are highly detailed, while others appear to be ripped right out of the original Xbox title, Call of Cthulhu. I also experienced quite a few bugs, primarily Talion getting stuck somewhere, with fast travel being the only option to rectify the issue. The voice acting is noteworthy, with fan favorite Troy Baker voicing Talion, among a host of other industry veterans for the supporting cast. The soundtrack is solid and fits the theme, but isn't nearly as memorable as Howard Shore's score from the motion pictures. Ultimately, Shadow of Mordor would feel like just another typical sandbox game, if not for the Nemesis system. This one feature is a game's saving grace, and along with the story are the main reasons to play it. The Nemesis system is most likely a sign of things to come for what we expect games of the future to have. It adds elements of replayability and does wonders on holding one's attention and creating an immersive environment. I'm sure it will be improved upon in future releases, and that Shadow of Mordor will be remembered as its progenitor.
Father! I'm right here, son! I'm right here!
We'll be together, my love. Soon! Forever!
Come back to me, Elf Lord.
It was here, on the slopes of Mount Doom, that the Dark Lord Sauron was defeated by a last alliance of men and elves. It is here that for 2,500 years the Rangers of Gondor stood watch, guarding against a nameless threat they had all but forgotten. And while the strength of Gondor faded, the power and malice of Sauron grew in darkness. He has returned to Mordor.